Everyone, it's Tuesday, July 14th, 2020. Welcome to the first installment of Weigh-Ins by the Ginger and the Beard podcast.
All right, let's do this.
What's up, guys? I'm AJ, aka the Ginger.
And I'm Reese, aka the Beard.
And as we just mentioned, this is the very first installment of Weigh-Ins, a spin-off series of the Ginger and the Beard podcast in which we focused 100% on happenings in the UFC.
That could include fight recaps, news in the industry, matchup predictions, or just general rants about the sport that we love. Ready to get into this?
Oh, yes, I am. We've been talking about doing this for so long now. So long as in 20 episodes long.
Yeah,
we typically tend to go way too long when it comes to the UFC segment of our show. So we've often said, why don't we just do a special spinoff that's just about UFC, where we can really drill in and kind of focus on, you know, what we're most passionate about. So that's why we originally moved UFC up to the top of the show, but now we're kind of doing this spinoff, which is going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, especially this week. This is like the perfect week to start this because we've got so much to cover. UFC 251 obviously was this past weekend, and you and I watched it along with our buddy Toby while chatting, and there's so much to talk about.
Oh, dude, absolutely. And I mean, like you said, yeah, like, you know, usually we talk about this for at a minimum 30 minutes, you know, so it's like, why not just do our own little 30 minutes segment, you know, work on the timing a little bit. The UFC event just, you know, was on Saturday. It's Tuesday now, you know, let's get our, you know, our thoughts in about it and talk about the next event that's going to be coming up. So yeah, let's dive right in, man. What are you thinking, dude?
Still fresh. Well, what I'm thinking right now is that this beer is mighty delicious. We're not going to do a beer segment like we typically do, but it's a Voodoo Ranger Experimental IPA. You said you grabbed a beer, right? What are you drinking?
Yeah, so this is a Firestone Walker Rosalie. You know, I'll just show it real quick. It is a beer rosé, which is kind of interesting, right? So it's a beer brewed with hibiscus and wine grapes.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Nice and refreshing.
Wine grapes. Is it dry?
No, I wouldn't say it's dry. It's not dry at all.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, cool. So, all right, yeah, I think we should dive right in, man. So this was our first UFC event on Fight Island, the mysterious, mystical, magical Fight Island. What did you think?
Yeah, so a little disappointing. I don't want to start on a down note, but everybody was like super hyped up. They were like, "Oh my God, it's going to be like Mortal Kombat in the sand. Like they're going to be like fatality, finish him." Yeah. And somebody's going to get kicked out of the ring and they're going to go into the water. Who knows? But yeah, so
I was fully expecting like their walk-ins to be like lit by tiki torches and like there's like these drums have like boop, 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 you know.
Absolutely, dude. That would have been so awesome. See,
it wasn't quite that.
No, it was like really far away from that. It just kind of looked like a standard UFC event, really. And I mean, it is technically an island, but it's like a man-made island. So, you know, whatever. It's still an island. It's in Abu Dhabi, you know, which is a part of what is it? Rob Island?
Yas Island,
right.
YAS.
That's what it is. Yas Island, Abu Dhabi, in the United Arab Emirates. So, yeah, pretty cool. It looks cool. And, you know, it must be fun for the fighters. But, man, it's really, really hot there. And if you watched any of, like, the lead up to it, all of those fighters were, like, you know, you can't even go outside and go for a walk. It's so hot.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Like, to your point, we all expected there to be an octagon like on the beach, but while there actually is one, if you guys follow Dana White on Instagram, you probably saw he posted an Instagram live video that featured an octagon on the beach. So we all got super hyped up about that, but turns out that's actually just for promo events and for training sessions. And if you're wondering why people aren't fighting on the beach, it's because in the mornings alone, it's 90 to 100 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
So That's pretty ridiculous. And these guys actually were fighting in the morning. So our time, it was 10 p.m., at least here on the East Coast. 10 p.m. is when the fight started happening, which actually works out to 6 a.m. in Abu Dhabi. So these guys were on like nocturnal schedules leading up to this fight just to make sure they weren't like, obviously exhausted and in the morning. And especially for some of the like early prelim fighters, their fights were like 2 a.m. local time, which is kind of madness.
Gosh. It is madness because like it takes your brain, it takes you a little while to get your circadian rhythm under control there. So, if they're going and showing up in Abu Dhabi like 2 or 3 nights ahead of time, like I don't really think that's enough time for your clock to readjust. I think you need like 2 weeks for your body to readjust to the time zone and get into that sleeping habit. So I wonder if I really do wonder if that's affected anyone. But with that also, the heat, right? It's makes sense that they would do it at 6 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
Because that kind of lines up with our time more, but it also prevents there from being so much heat, right?
Yeah,
6 a.m. in the morning there, in Abu Dhabi is, they haven't hit that 90-degree weather yet. So like the cost of, keeping the air conditioning running and whatnot. I don't know how I got on that topic just now, but yeah,
because you look at numbers all day. You're so financially responsible.
I guess
that's
so.
where your mind goes.
Yeah, you're probably right about just logically thinking about everything. So, but I think that's probably why they decided to do it so early. On top of the fact that everybody at home is going to be watching it at 10 o'clock, p.m. Eastern time, which is our time zone.
I wish they would kind of start these things earlier, to be honest with you. Coming from a dad of 2 young sons, these fights starting at 10 p.m. at night, and sometimes I knew this one was going to go long. So this one went all the way until 2 in the morning, right? So typically after a fight night, sometimes I stay up late anyways, just to play some video games after the fights or whatever. But this time with 3 title fights on the line, which we're about to get into, that's 3 fights with 5 rounds that could go the entire distance, and they did. Yeah. So 2 o'clock, that's what I was kind of expecting, and that's where we ended up. So fortunately for the people that are watching on the West Coast, I guess these fights these fights start like 7 p.m. for them, so that kind of works out. But yeah,
that's probably why they do it though. Is it's probably for the West Coasters, I just like for the fighters in the main event, for them to like not even go into the ring until 1 o'clock in the morning, like
that's crazy, dude. I've always wondered that. I'm like, because sometimes you're like, okay, it does happen in a different country or on the West Coast of the United States or whatever, but sometimes the fights are like in New York or like even here. We had some like in Norfolk not too long ago. So for those guys, can you imagine? Like, I can't imagine doing anything but sitting in a chair or on the couch at 11 p.m. at night. So I can't imagine getting into a ring and like having to beat somebody up.
I don't, I can't believe it. So I would assume, that probably affects some fighters where they're probably not in their peak, running their peak performance. You would assume, some fighters might, I just wonder what it would be like if the fighters were like going first thing in the morning, right? Would it be different? Fresh first thing in the morning, or would that change anything at all? I'm not sure.
Yeah, good point. So, all right, well, I think, like we said, not exactly what we were expecting for Fight Island, but I think at the end of the day, we should be happy that fighters who live internationally can all travel to this one location and make the fights happen. So that's what it's all about, really. There's no blood sport happening or Mortal Kombat, but we did get some fights, so I guess we can't complain too much. So I think we should dive into the first fight. I think we're just going to stick to the main card because there's so much to talk about here, even though there were some pretty good prelim fights. But starting with the main card, a pretty highly anticipated fight, I would say. Paige Van Zant made her return to the octagon, facing off against Amanda Rivas. So Paige Van Zant, I believe it had been 18 months since she had fought, and that was due to breaking her arm 3 times and having 3 surgeries in that 18-month window.
Oh my gosh.
I think if you remember her last fight, I think the fight where she broke her arm the first time, she actually fought the remainder of the fight with a broken arm, and nobody knew until after the fact when she was posting on the internet, showing her surgery images and things like that.
Yeah, it was January 19th, 2019 against Rachel Ostovich, and she actually submitted Rachel Ostovich with an armbar.
Oh, gosh.
With a broken arm.
With a broken forearm. Pretty insane. So I think a lot of people were, I was personally excited to see her come back because she had a lot of potential, and it was also interesting because she was one of the ones that we've mentioned on previous episodes talking about fighter pay, because she did Dancing with the Stars and said that she made more money on Dancing with the Stars than she had in all of her fights, all of her bonuses combined with the UFC. So kind of a highly anticipated fight, and it ended really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. She also modeled for Nike and Columbia Sportswear. So it's like, she's
getting the money somewhere.
Yeah. She's not making money from UFC. I think she just does it because she likes the sport, but
right.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, she's fighting against, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu specialist in Amanda Ribas, and, they're both, standouts, in that space, in black belt, I believe they're both black belts in jiu-jitsu. You know what? I should probably fact check myself on that.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah,
Sounds right.
I'm almost certain. I'll go back and confirm if I'm wrong, or somebody tell me I'm wrong if I am. But I was quite impressed with Amanda Ribas. I haven't ever seen her before. Have you ever heard of Amanda Ribas?
No, I don't think so. I never had seen her fight before, but yeah, I mean, she kind of locked this one up pretty quick. This ended in the first round or the second round? I think it was the first round. She got the clinch super fast.
Round 1, 2 minutes and 21 seconds. So really fast.
She took control of the fight and took it to the ground, which is where she wanted it to be. And then, like you said, she used her black belt in jiu-jitsu and just really imposed her will and closed out the fight with an armbar. So belly down too. It was pretty interesting. It looked like Paige Van Zandt was going to slide out of it, but Amanda Rivas switched over to like a belly down armbar, which looked so painful. Paige was pretty quick to tap. I wonder if that was the arm that had been broken. That's interesting. We should look into that.
Yeah.
'Cause she may have been quicker to tap, knowing like she doesn't have like really the strength in that arm to withstand some torture.
Oh, dude, absolutely. And looking at Amanda Ribas a little bit more, right? So right now she's 4-0 in the UFC. She started fighting in the UFC in June of 2019, right? So she's only been in the UFC for like a year. Her overall professional fight career, she's only lost one fight, and that was back in 2015 due to a knockout. She got knocked out by this Polyana Viana girl. Also want to here's another one. Do you know who Mackenzie Dern is?
No, it doesn't sound familiar.
Mackenzie Dern is like a worldwide renowned black belt or jiu-jitsu champion in females jiu-jitsu, and for the fact that she was able to beat Mackenzie Dern, who is already renowned as a champion in jiu-jitsu, is quite impressive. She beat her by decision last October. So I don't know, man. I didn't know that, and the fact that she came out and beat Paige, quite impressive. And I gotta say, Amanda Ribas, I don't know if you saw the post-fight interview, the girl is full of energy, man.
Oh yeah,
she's a little bunny just bouncing around all over the place. I was like, wow, man, she's got tons of energy. So props to her. I really enjoyed it though.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because Dana White, kind of in response to the stuff that Paige Van Zandt has been saying about fighter pay and stuff, I think Dana White came out. I'm trying to look for the exact exact quote, but he essentially said something about you can't talk all that stuff about fighter pay and then come out and get smoked in the first round.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
But the argument's still kind of valid.
The argument's definitely valid because no matter if she wins or loses, she's a poster child of the UFC.
Right.
People know her not because of how she fights; it's because how she looks, right? So
yeah, right.
They see her. They've used her to market the UFC, just like they did with Sage Northcutt, right? Same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So the fact that they didn't compensate her just means they pretty much just used her for her looks and, you know,
Just attract people to the sport.
attract people to the sport and, didn't really compensate her that much for it. So I don't know.
But
She's probably,
I think
again, she's just doing it for fun.
Yeah. I mean, she seemed pretty positive at the end of the fight. She seemed still like she didn't get, I can't imagine that feeling of getting beat after 18 months of anticipation, trying to get back in that octagon and getting beat that fast. And then, I mean, she's seemed in pretty good spirits. So maybe we'll see her back in the near future, considering she didn't take that much damage. But let's move on. Our other female fight of the night. I'm going to be honest with you. I was looking forward to this fight more so than like two of the title fights on the card. So Thug Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade. I was so excited to see Rose come back after what she's gone through, with that when she fought Andrade the last time, getting knocked out by a head slam and then having a couple deaths in the family due to COVID. I was excited to see her like in a good headspace and back in the ring. And they gave us a great fight, man. A really great fight.
Oh, dude, 100%. It was kind of like a little war, I think I was expecting Rose kind of looked a little bit. She didn't look like she was at her best, right? When she fought Jessica the first time, like the way that she came out and was just like piecing Jessica up, man, it was so impressive. Bobbing, weaving, stricken. So, maybe Jessica like maybe learned from their first the first contest and adjusted, and maybe Rose didn't have like the same opportunities that she had last time, but it was the first time they fought, Rose was just like smoking Jessica the whole time, and then she got slammed on her head and lost, which was very unfortunate. This time it was a very close fight, and it shows because it was a split decision, man.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with what you're saying. Jessica Andrade 100% learned and kind of adjusted after that first fight, because she came out. You can watch the replay on this one. The entire 3 rounds, the head movement out of her was insane. Like, she didn't sit still for a second. And I think that's because she knew if she did, she's going to get pieced up by Rose. Because Rose is just so accurate. But Andrade was just bouncing around everywhere. But she had a significant reach disadvantage. So she's trying to figure out the distance for much of the fight. They kept it pretty even. I mean, it was a striking bout, 100%. I'm not sure if they went to the ground at all, actually, now that I think back to it.
I got a couple of numbers for you.
Okay, throw them at us.
So total strikes, like you said, very close. So we're talking, this is connected strikes. 82 for Rose, 79 for Jessica.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's connected. Total thrown, 235 for Rose, 213 for Jessica. And then if you look at significant strikes, every single punch that that Rose connected with was a significant strike. So 82, and 71 of the 79 for Jessica were significant. So Rose landed, about 10, 11 more significant strikes. And there was 4 takedown attempts total. Rose tried to take Jessica down once. Jessica tried to take Rose down 3 times. 1 successful takedown by Jessica. And I think that was in the last round. And, I think that's what basically won Jessica that round. That last round is that takedown for sure.
Yep, you're right. You're right about that. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. I think when I was the one thing I was thinking the entire fight and towards the end was like, I can't imagine being a judge and trying to make the call here. It was just so even. Obviously, the numbers kind of proved that, but I guess numbers kind of the proof's in the pudding there. Rose took that fight by the numbers. It definitely wasn't a clear decision, so I think split was kind of what we were expecting. Yeah. But yeah, to your point, I mean, now Rose has moved up and Jessica's moved down. Rose is now the number 1 contender for the title belt. So I would love to the title belt, the belt of the title. I look forward to that Wei Li Zhang and Rose fight. To be honest, though, after what we saw with Wei Li Zhang versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk, I don't know if Rose is going to have to put on the heat if she wants to take on Wei Li, man.
If she can bring that in this fight, she didn't have it, right? She didn't bring her A game this fight. This was Rose's B game against Jessica this fight. If Rose can get back in the zone and do what she did to, Joanna the first 2 times, and what she did to Jessica in the first round of that fight,
Yeah.
I think that she can do it. I think that she has the skill set. She just needs to be in the right mindset. There was a post that she posted while she was in the hospital. She had like a month ago, she said that that fight, the Joanna versus Weili Zhang fight, wasn't the best fight of the year. And then while she was in the hospital, she actually took that back and said, yeah, respect, and that was actually the best fight of the year. I think that in her head, she was thinking that her fight with Jessica was going to be the best fight of the year, but it wasn't.
Gotcha.
No,
Not by a landslide.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting though, man. I'm excited for when they announce that because it's coming.
I can't wait, dude. I want to see Rose win again. I really do. Bring it back to America.
Yes, 100%. Thug Rose. All right, so let's move on. Let's get into our first championship fight, shall we?
Yeah, dude. Let's do this.
All right, so
Ready.
Petr Yan versus we keep saying Jose, but I think they actually pronounce it Jose Aldo. So this was the bantamweight belt, filling Henry Cejudo's spot since he retired. Gosh, man, I think this one won fight of the night bonus. I'm pretty sure this was the fight of the night bonus. Might have to fact check that, but another war, man, another war. It ended in a stoppage, but leading up to that was a stoppage in the 5th round, right?
Yeah.
But leading up to that, what a war! This was also another kind of a hard one to call. They both had their rounds.
Yeah, I think Jose. I mean, I think it might have been Jose in the first round, right? For like the first 4 minutes of the first round, and then Peter took him down at one point, and I don't know if you remember, but there was like a kidney punch, and it just like.
Oh yeah.
It just looked so vicious, man.
Yes.
And you could see Jose just kind of like cringe. So that tells me one thing, man, that Petr.
There's like an L. There's a silent L in there, I think. Pelter
Yan. Pelter Yan.
There's a Y and then a Y L. Pelter. I think that's how it's said.
Petr Yan.
We should just call him Lil Pete.
Little Petey. Good old Petey. Petey's got some strong hands, bro.
Petey got them hands.
Yes,
yeah, he absolutely does. No, you're right. That he got the takedown. I don't know if he actually took it to the ground or if Jose took it to the ground, but I remember the punch you're talking about, where I think Piotr was in guard I don't think he had full mount, but yeah, he was raining down some ground and pound, and instead of going for the head, which was like wide open, it looked like he went to the body and caught him in right where you'd think the liver would be, but people suggested that it might have been a broken rib. Right. But yeah, like you said, Jose was in excruciating pain, like severely wincing. There was a few times whenever Piotr got into like a ground and pound position and had top mount, I was like, this thing could be over any second. But whoever that ref was, I don't know what his name is. I think he let that fight go on far too long in a couple of instances where a lot of refs would have just called that and stopped it. But Jose, he recovered. He was hiding his pain well in round 2, and he switched it up and kind of started going for the leg kicks, the calf kicks, and that definitely started to wear on Piotr, and he kind of switched up his stance. But yeah, I mean, every single round they traded very, very evenly, even into the 3rd round. But they did kind of start to wear a little bit in the 4th.
Yeah, so Leon Roberts is the guy, and he's under a lot of fire right now.
For that fight?
For not stopping that fight earlier. And there was actually a former judge in the UFC that was reaching out and saying, you can get fired, right? Like basically just being like, hey man, like you're there to protect the fighters and uphold the, make sure the rules are being followed. If you're just going to let this guy get smoked for like 5 minutes, come on, dude. Because he was, dude. That whole last round, he was like, I think the 4th and 5th round, right? He was just getting smoked, man. It was terrible. So, Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. In round 4, he got a trip. He tripped for a takedown, and was just ground and pounding again until the end of the round. And then in round 5, he actually got a crucifix where you actually pin back. If you don't know what a crucifix is, they actually pin down both arms, where you're stretched out like this, like you're
Right.
like you're being crucified, right? And then your face is just, you have no choice but to just absorb the blows. Somehow, I think Jose slipped out an arm and was able to cover up a little bit, but at one point, I mean, yeah, you're right. They just let it go way too long,
Yeah.
and eventually, fortunately, he did actually stop it. But yeah, that was a battle for sure. I'm not sure what we think about Jose in this new weight class. I mean, he's definitely a lot. He's very trim, very cut. He seems like he's got good stamina. I mean, they both didn't show any signs of slowing down until they got into those championship rounds. I kind of like Jose in this weight class, but Pilter, man, I 100% think he deserves that title. I think we all saw it kind of coming. So I'm curious who would be his next challenger.
So it's bantamweight, and I think we all kind of expect that it's going to be Aljamain Sterling.
Right.
But there's also there was somebody else that was supposed to fight for that belt. And I'm sorry, I'm at a loss of his name right now. Marlon
yeah,
Moraes.
Right.
Marlon Moraes. And Marlon beat Jose in a split decision, but everyone thinks that Jose won that fight.
Yep.
I personally don't think that I don't think that Marlon can beat Petr Yan. I would love to see Aljamain Sterling fight him. I would love to see Cody Garbrandt fight him.
I think Aljamain would be the best fight to watch just because their styles are so much different. I think Aljamain won his last fight on a submission. And I don't think Pilter's into the ground game as much, but so that would be really interesting to watch. I think Aljamain Sterling, if I remember correctly, submitted Corey Sandhagen in his last fight.
Yeah, which was very fast submission, and Corey Sandhagen is supposed to be the submission artist, not Aljamain.
Right.
So,
Right.
but he just came out and got it done, man. He was explosive and just got the job done. So I definitely want to see that. But what I would really love to see is my boy Sugar Shane come up and
Sugar Sean.
bust out that C, right? Get that
I think
C.
they actually. I need to look into this really quick. I think they may have announced a fight for Sugar Sean.
Well, I mean, he didn't take any damage in his last fight. He hasn't taken any damage in the last 3 years in any of his fights. So, and
Yeah,
I'm only saying that
exactly.
because he was out for
Yep.
2 years.
Yeah, he's actually fighting Marlon Vera on August 15th at UFC 252.
No way.
So we'll get to see him. We'll get to see him fight again
Oh.
very soon.
Yep, and he's on the main card. Main card. Yeah, that's a good card too, man. Got some good fights. That's the Stipe Daniel Cormier fight, bro.
Oh,
There
wow.
we
It's
go.
that soon. Oh, man. It's that soon, huh? I'm excited to see this trilogy kind of come to a conclusion because there's so much talent in the UFC divisions, the heavyweight division, specifically Francis Ngannou. So I'm ready to see that guy get another shot at the title, whether it's against DC or whether it's against Stipe.
Yeah, dude. I think that Francis deserves that fight, and personally, I want Stipe to win. I just want to talk about this real quick, and then we can go back.
All right, let's do it.
Stipe is. I want Stipe to win because he's from my home state, and
Oh,
I
yeah,
lived
that's right.
And I lived an hour away from him, right?
No
So it's
way, dude.
It's like
That's
a
awesome.
hometown boy, man. I want him to win, bro.
You may have crossed paths with Stipe at some point in your life.
It's possible.
It's
It
very,
is.
it's very possible.
It's very possible. So, I think that I want him to win, but I would much rather see Daniel Cormier fight Francis Ngannou. I think that
Oh, gosh.
if Daniel wins, he's just gonna retire, right?
I think so, yeah. I
And
think
then
if
it's
he
gonna
wins
be-
or loses, I think he might retire. I mean, do you think
Oh,
he
yeah.
could keep fighting?
No, dude, I don't think so, man.
I'm pretty sure he's actually openly said he does not want to fight Francis.
Yeah, he has, and he said he was gonna retire 2 years ago. So Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, dude, he's got such a good career ahead of him in commentating and all the stuff he's doing with ESPN. He has his own spinoff series, like TV. Well, I guess you can't really call him TV, but like web video series. So he's set. He's set. I like DC a lot as a person, but Stipe also. I mean, how can you not pull for Stipe, right? He's a firefighter.
Dude.
He's
a good person.
I don't know. He's a good dude, right? So
Yeah.
I'm excited for that one. But
we should get back to the topic at hand.
I know.
Though. Sorry about that.
Dude, that's why we had this. That's the whole point of doing these weigh-ins. We can go wherever we want with the UFC talk. So
going to outer space, bro. Let's go.
But bringing it back to UFC 251, moving on to the next title belt. Why am I saying title belt? That's not even a thing. The next championship belt. This is the belt.
There you go.
Dude, it's been a night. Max Holloway versus Alexander Volkanovski. Another great fight. Another really hard one to call. I mean, everyone has their side on this one. Most people think Holloway should have won it, but I watched it round for round, and honestly, I if I was a judge, I mean, like, I don't really know who I would have given it to. They both looked great. Volkanovski definitely didn't dominate as much as he did the last time, and Max looked a lot better than he did the last time. So, do you have the numbers on this one by chance?
I do, and I'm actually surprised about these numbers because personally, I thought that Max dominated that fight. I thought that Max was controlling it. I thought that he was the one leading, but I realize now looking at these numbers, it was basically like every time Max threw a punch, Alexander threw two. But I felt like Max's punches were doing more than Alexander's were, but the numbers add up. So here you go, right? Now, I want to give this number first. This is the total strike attempts, right? Alexander Volkanovski, 275. Max Holloway, 277.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
That is insane, man.
Now, here's connected significant strikes. These are successful lands, accurate, and they're significant. 102 for Max Holloway and 137 for Alexander Volkanovski. Okay, so that's a pretty big gap in significant strikes. Alexander was every two times he threw a punch, he connected one of them. That's pretty good, 50%. And then you get into takedowns. Max Holloway, 0 takedown attempts. Alexander Volkanovski, 9 takedown attempts and 3 were successful. Wow. So just looking at those kinds of numbers, I mean, Alexander didn't really do anything with those takedowns. They were just kind of like, oh, his butt touched the ground and then he got right back up. And it was like, but they don't counted.
But he was working. He was working.
Yeah. It just didn't, I don't know. It just didn't. I don't know. Watching the fight, I thought that Max won. Looking at the numbers, clearly Alexander won.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's hard because as fans sometimes it's impossible not to have some sort of bias when it comes to these fighters. And who doesn't love Max Holloway? But so you kind of watch the fight through like a clouded glass window, you know what I mean? Where you're like seeing the good that Max is doing, but maybe not so much seeing the good that Alexander's doing. But yeah, I mean, those numbers are pretty close. And I guess as much as it pains us to say those takedown attempts and successful takedowns, whether he did something with them or not, actually do count towards something. So it's a toss up. So but those striking numbers are interesting because Max Holloway actually he holds the title for the record of most significant strikes landed in a UFC match, which is at 290 when he fought Brian Ortega in 2018. Man.
That's rough.
290 significant strikes. So yeah, I mean, it was a pretty evenly matched fight. Interestingly enough, Volkanovski had the reach advantage. Even though there's a significant height disadvantage for Volkanovski, he must have some long gorilla arms. He had the reach advantage. And I think it was the second round, Max actually rocked Volkanovski with a head kick, if you remember that. He touched him in like the back, like right behind the ear. He touched him with his toes, and Volkanovski dropped to his knees for a second. And I thought that fight was going to be over. I thought Max was going to capitalize on that opportunity, but he wasn't quite able to. And it kind of went from there. But yeah, really tough.
I think that they were point fighting, and Volkanovski clearly was able to do better at the point fighting. But I think that Holloway had the, it's sad because it's like, was it significant or was it not? There's not like a
Yeah.
rating of like, well, how significant were those strikes, right?
Right. Right.
Because if like each of his strikes was a 5, each of Alexander's was a 3, and you put the numbers up that way, then well, clearly Holloway would have had more significant ones. So it's like some of these things,
Right.
it's like you're judging in the moment and you have to make a decision right then and there. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah, that's a hard
it's
one. I definitely these are the type of fights where I definitely don't envy the job of the judges. Sometimes the judges get it 100% wrong, and no matter who you are, whether you're a casual fan or a hardcore diehard fan, the judges just got it wrong. But in these
oh
sort of
yeah,
fights, I'm just like, dude, I don't envy you at all because one way or the other, people are going to be mad at you. So it
yep,
kind of is what it is. I think one thing that Max has to switch up is like I've been saying this for the last few weeks is that I feel like we have this new wave of fighters that are just extremely aggressive. Like their goal is to come out there and pressure you the entire time and just be on the offensive. And I think that look gives you more points in the eyes of the judges, and that's not where Max comes from. He's a more defensive sort of
counter
fighter.
striker.
Yeah, counter striker. So he doesn't have like he's not known for the one punch knockout where Alexander has a lot of power in his hands. So that kind of plays
Yeah.
into it as well. But looking forward, so I think was that a split decision? I think it was a split decision, right? I can't
I actually
remember.
don't recall. I don't remember either. But I do think it was a split decision. I think that it would be kind of leaning towards a robbery if Volkanovski didn't win that fight. Looking at those numbers, right?
Right, right. Yeah, and so I guess
But
good on the judges for getting it right, I suppose. But and Max is
yeah,
again super positive about all this. If you follow him on his social, he's talking about how he's gonna get better. And one case specifically, he said that some of the judges have been getting like violent threats based on like the decision they made, and he came out
oh
and was like,
wow,
"Listen, guys, like it's not we shouldn't be acting like that." They made the decision. It is what it is. I'm going to get better. I'm going to be back. Um,
yeah,
so that was his second loss to Volkanovski. We talked about it after the fight. I don't think they're going to I can't imagine they give him a third fight with
no, they won't.
Volkanovski without him
Nope.
putting in some work. But he is still the number one contender. So looking at the UFC rankings right now, he is still the number one contender. And we also talked about the fact that there really isn't that much there's tons of talent in that division. Don't get me wrong, but there aren't really that many standouts in the featherweight division that I could see taking out Volkanovski. If Max Holloway couldn't do it, do you think number 2 ranked Zabit is going to do it? Do you think Brian
I don't
Ortega?
think
I
so.
think maybe Brian Ortega makes a comeback. Um, maybe the Korean
Yeah,
Zombie. There's some beef happening right now between the Korean Zombie and Brian Ortega. Maybe they match those two together, and that the winner of that gets the title shot. I'm not sure.
you know who I actually would like to see? I'd like to see
Yeah,
Yair
you're
Rodriguez, because he really impressed me in his last fight, and I think that um, I think that he could be a good contest. But looking at these rankings, right? Zabit tires out. He can fight for 2 rounds really strong and just look like the best fighter ever, and you won't see him for the next 3 rounds basically because he's too tired.
right.
I personally don't think Brian Ortega has the striking skills, and he's been out for such a long time now. He's probably so rusty in the ring, and a lot of his wins were with guillotine chokes. So I mean, yeah, it's always possible that he could probably get something on Alexander, but I mean, Alexander's like such a strong
Yeah,
person. Like I don't feel like he would be put in that position. So I agree that I don't think like anyone can really beat Max Holloway either. I don't think any of these people can beat Max. So
yeah. I feel like at this point he's kind of like the gatekeeper to the belt. I feel like he's like you got to beat Max Holloway before you can get a shot at the belt. But I agree with your Yair Rodriguez mention because he's beaten the Korean Zombie. He's beaten Jeremy Stevens. He's beaten Frankie Edgar. He's beaten BJ Penn, or sorry, excuse me, Frankie Edgar beat Yair. He's beaten BJ Penn. So I mean, like he's definitely been proving himself. And that
Yeah.
fight style, I believe, would be pretty effective. It seems like it might be effective against Volkanovski's fight style. So
Yeah.
that definitely would be interesting. But this weekend, we might talk a little bit about this towards the end of the show. We actually will be seeing more of the featherweight division because we've got number 6th ranked Calvin Kattar facing off against number 10 ranked Dan Ige. So depending on how that fight goes, maybe we'll have a different opinion about those two guys. Somebody's going to be moving up most likely.
Oh yeah, I think I'm gonna take Calvin Kattar in that, and I personally I would like to see Calvin over Zabit in that in a title fight with Volkanovski. I just don't think Zabit can handle 5 rounds. I think Calvin could, and I think Calvin gets better every round that he fights. So
yeah.
but
And then we've also got he's number 14 ranked right now, but I'm not sure if you've ever seen him fight before. Sodiq Yusuff, another very talented fighter, who's won his last couple, I believe. And I could see him. I mean, he's definitely got a ways to go. He's got some climbing to do, but some potential there as well.
yeah, he might be on his way up. I know Ryan Hall's gonna be fighting soon, and he's a submission artist, so I think I could see definitely both Ryan Hall and Sadiq Yusuf, getting into the top 10 certainly in the near future. I actually just noticed Jose Aldo is ranked number 15 now.
I saw that too. I literally just saw that. I'm like kind of shocked by it. Where was he before? I guess it shows you, right? He dropped four spots.
Yeah, but that's featherweight also, right? So he's ranked 6 in bantamweight now, but I mean, until he wins a fight, I don't think until he wins a fight, it's like how can you even give him a rank? But it is what it is. So
yeah. All right, so last but not least on our card for UFC 251, the most anticipated, I believe, Jorge Masvidal versus Kamaru Usman. So speaking of fighters who don't have a chance to really acclimate to the new climate, to the new time zone, Masvidal took this fight on 6 days' notice. I mean, we talked about this a little bit last week, or on Friday, I believe. Gilbert Burns obviously was up for the title shot, came down with the COVID, the Rona got him. So Masvidal was there to step up and take his place, even with all the trash he's been talking with fighter pay, understandably and agreeably. But yeah, he had 6 days notice. He cut 22 pounds in 6 days to make this weight.
Yeah, I mean, what did you expect, man? I mean, go ahead and talk about it, but everybody saw.
Yeah, I mean, I to be honest, I think if we reflect back on our last episode, I said I would be pulling for Kamaru, but I expected Jorge to win. And if you actually look back, we put a poll up on Instagram. I should have prepared that for the show, and I think it was 70 some or maybe even 80 some % of people said that they thought Jorge was going to win that fight over Kamaru. I thought his aggression and striking would kind of take him to the victory, but obviously that didn't prove to be true. Maybe it was the 6 days notice. Maybe it was he didn't have the training, but according to his teammates and according to some folks in the industry, he hasn't stopped training since he thought he would be getting the title shot. So I'm not sure that's really the excuse to use there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, right? I mean, 22 pounds in such a short amount of time is really, really significant and does something to your body. It makes, definitely zaps your energy. And then on top of that, traveling halfway across the world and being on a different time schedule and fighting when your body would, normally be sleeping is, all of those things is just kind of like, really
it takes a toll.
Yeah, I just don't know if that was the best look for Jorge. I mean, he did pretty good in the first round and whatnot, but I do want to point something out real quick, right? And you mentioned fighter pay, right? So I just to that
Mm-hmm.
point real quick is, Dana's come out, I think, earlier today and was like, the reason why, and also, this UFC event had the most pay-per-views in the past 2 years. It had more
Wow.
pay-per-views out of any other event in the past 2 years. Um,
Wow.
probably since Connor, right? I would assume that that's the other event that did better.
Probably. Probably so.
I gotta fact check that, but so Dana basically came out and said, Jorge's a superstar. He did it. He made it. So the fighter pay thing, I mean, Jorge was totally right, dude. He deserves more money. People want to see him fight. I want to see him fight again, and I wouldn't be surprised if Dana gives him a fight against Gilbert Burns, and
I
then the
can see
winner
that.
fights Kamaru. You know?
I can see that. I actually was thinking the same thing. I'm like, do they give Gilbert Burns the shot right away? Obviously, he was up for title contention. Do they give him the fight immediately after this now, or do they make him, fight somebody like Jorge before he gets to Kamaru? I think they should go that route. I don't think they should give him the title shot right away. I think they were jumped the gun a little bit on that to begin with. We talked about it on Friday, but I think he was he was just the one that was willing to take the fight with the money. He's not complaining about the fighter pay. So they gave it to him, but I think he needs to prove himself a little bit more before he steps in the ring with Kamaru.
I agree. I actually want to see either. I also want to see Colby get back in the mix. I mean, we're talking about like these top four guys. I mean, they're everybody's fighting for second place. I really think Kamaru is like quite an animal. What he did in that ring. Can I give you the stats real quick or?
Yeah, dude. Let's hear him.
So I mean, 263 total connected strikes from Kamaru. He threw 341.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
263 to Jorge's 88.
oh jeez.
So, I mean, that's like three times as many.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, don't get me wrong. Jorge had a couple. He had 66 significant strikes. So, I mean, he was landing a couple punches. I mean, he had a couple really nice ones. But then you got 16 takedown attempts by Kamaru, 5 successful. Come on now.
And this is the control time too. Do you have the control time statistics by chance?
I don't have control on here, but I'm
Like, I
pretty
mean,
sure. I think it was. I think it was like 14 minutes. I remember seeing.
that's right. I think that does sound right actually. Yeah. I mean, his game plan was evident. Obviously with somebody like Jorge Masvidal, very unpredictable, very wild. I mean, he comes from that street fighting background, fighting with people like Kimbo Slice, in the backyards. He's unpredictable. He's got knockout power for sure. Just look at what he did to Darren Till, like on the back foot.
Yep.
But so I think Usman's plan from the beginning was lock him up in the clinch, pin him against the cage, and that's exactly what he did the entire fight, except for round one. I think round one was a little bit more even, but he pinned him up. And the reason he's got so many strike attempts, is because he's stomping the feet, he's uppercutting the body. He had some serious body shots in there that, for most people would have kind of put you out. But
Oh yeah.
Jorge absorbed a lot of it. And that's kind of the story of it. I mean, there was a couple cuts from Jorge. Jorge showed some damage, but really that came from like some unfortunate head clashes just between the two fighters. Very, very much not on purpose. Um, and yeah, I mean, like you said, the takedowns, like all of that kind of solidified the deal. This was not a split decision. It did go the distance, but 100% not a split decision. I think it was a 4-1. Most people called it 4-1 in terms of rounds won between the fighters.
I mean, I don't even know how they said 4-1 though. Like, how did Jorge? I don't think Jorge won any round. I don't know. Like, are
Yeah,
they
I think
giving him the first round?
I think the first round is where people kind of debate and say that Jorge may have taken that round just with striking, but yeah, after that, I 100% agree with you when it comes to the travel, the weight cut, things like that, playing into your stamina. I mean, I can't imagine, being having to exert that much energy. Um, and just getting exhausted so quickly, you know. So
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it was unfortunate. I kind of just wish that Gilbert wouldn't have got sick and we would have saw that fight, or
right.
Jorge would have had a full like 90-day camp, going into this. So
Yep, and
yeah,
it's also that Jorge went. He dropped a ranking. Like he's number 4 now. I don't think they should have dropped him a ranking. I feel like if you take a fight on that short of notice, like your ranking shouldn't really be affected by it. But I mean, I guess that's the way it goes. But
who
yeah, to your
jumped
point
in?
earlier. Hmm?
Oh, Leon Edwards moved up. What?
Yeah, and there's a lot of beef being had right now. I think if you remember, Leon Edwards and Jorge Masvidal actually got into a little scrap backstage after one of Jorge's fights. So
Right.
they've got some beef to settle. It might be interesting to see Jorge versus Leon, and then Colby
Yeah.
versus Gilbert Burns, and then let's see where the winners line up for that before they put him in there with Kamaru. I think Kamaru proved in this fight that he's not intimidated. He can strike with the best of them. He can grapple with the best of them. When it comes to his wrestling talent. So he might be in that champion seat for a little while.
I think you're right about that, man. I think you're definitely right about that. He's an animal, dude, and he's such a good wrestler. So I don't know. I'm not sure who's gonna beat him. I definitely he's already beat Colby and Jorge. So let's see what Gilbert and Leon can offer. And he's
Right.
beat Tyrone.
Yep.
After those guys, who's next? You got Stephen Thompson, but I don't think
Yeah,
Stephen Thompson can do it either.
I was literally about to say, man, like there's so much talent in this division. Like let's just read some names off right now. Like starting at the bottom, Anthony Pettis at 15, Neil Magny, Robbie Lawler, Vicente Luque, Nate Diaz, Rafael dos Anjos, Michael Chiesa, Damian Maya, Steven. This is the most stacked division I feel like in the entire UFC. Like that, those names right there. I'm just like, holy crap, dude. Um,
I agree, dude. I agree. Almost everyone on that list is like a household name.
Yeah, for
You know?
sure. I mean, these guys, some of them are a little bit, a little older in the sport in terms of the sport. Like they've kind of seen their prime. But how
Yeah.
cool would it be to see like Anthony Pettis and Nate Diaz rise back up towards the top of the rankings, or Stephen Thompson? Like we haven't seen Wonder Boy fight in a while. I'd like to see him kind of make a comeback too. So I don't know,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I honestly thought Stephen Thompson, should have won that belt against Tyrone, but it is what it is. Man, what a crazy um
Division.
weight class there, dude. That's a
Yeah,
crazy division right there, man. Got some good.
absolutely.
We got the UFC's got it going on in some divisions, man. They got some
I,
really interesting stuff.
yeah, my favorite divisions right now are welterweight and bantamweight. I think those are my two favorite right now. Um, followed
Yeah.
closely by. I mean, all the divisions are. It's just a really great time for the sport. It's a great time to be a fan of the sport because basically every fight night, these free fight nights, a lot of them could be pay-per-view events. Um,
Right.
just because there's so much talent. So it's exciting time for sure.
Oh, dude, definitely. And I agree with you. Welterweight and bantamweight are definitely the most competitive, I think.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
all these other ones are like very top heavy. Although the middleweight, middleweight's got some good folks in there. The top 10 of middleweight's looking pretty good too. So
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Robert. I can't. Do we have a fight lined up yet for Adesanya? I can't. Oh yeah, Paulo Costa, right?
Yeah. I don't know when that's gonna happen. I know Robert Whitaker's fighting Darren Till
Oh
soon.
yeah, that's right. That's right. That'll be a good one.
That fight. So we have a fight actually coming up tomorrow, which is
Yes.
really weird on a Wednesday. You know, Calvin Qatar versus Dan Ige.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, um, I don't. I mean, I saw Calvin Qatar in his last fight against Zabit, and a lot of people think he won that fight, and they think that if it would have went 5 rounds like it was supposed to go, that he definitely would have won that fight.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see, what Dan Ige brings to the table. I know Dan Ige is pretty good too. I just don't know how good he is.
Right. I don't remember watching the Zabit fight, but I do believe I watched the Calvin Qatar versus Jeremy Stevens fight, and that was a round 2 KO. And we're talking about Jeremy Stevens here, which is he's known for kind of having a chin. So
Yeah.
definitely interesting. Dan Ige, on the other hand, has a couple of names under his belt right now. Edson Barboza, probably the largest one. He won a decision in round 3 back in May.
Oh right.
So, yeah, I mean, these are both. I mean, the opposite side of the spectrum. Definitely not household names by any means at this point. But I think they definitely have a lot of promise. So I'll be watching tomorrow night. I'm sure you will be as well. And we'll have some more to kind of report on, Friday in our main episode of the podcast.
And in a week and a half from now, so a week and a half from now is the Robert Whittaker versus Darren Till fight. So I'm sure we'll talk about this before the fight a little bit more. But I just want to point out that, so this is UFC Fight Night 174. Let me just read a couple of these names. Mauricio Shogun Hua is going to be fighting Antonio Rogero Nogueira. These guys are like veterans of the sport that are just coming.
For sure.
That Mauricio's 38 and Antonio's 44.
Oh what? My gosh. 44?
Yeah, and here's another one. Fabricio Verdum is fighting Alexander Gustafsson, who's coming out of retirement, to fight at heavyweight. Guys, that's crazy. Fabricio's 42 and Alexander's 33, but like Alexander is looking like an absolute beast. If you go on his checking him out on his social medias, dude, he's putting on some pounds, man.
I was saying, and this is heavyweight. This is not light heavyweight, so this will be interesting.
Yeah, man, that's gonna be an interesting night. I'm not like super hyped up about it, but like it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be an experience.
Yeah, and then you've got Carla Esparza, who just fought on May 9th, already back in the ring, so in the octagon. So interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of good fights. I mean, Jimmy Rivera versus Cody Stamann. That's on there as well. I mean, this is again, this is what I'm saying. Like some of these free fight nights could 100%. Some of these fights could be on a pay-per-view for sure.
Yeah, this one could be a pay-per-view. And I think they probably didn't make it a pay-per-view because it's got like these older guys on there, and they're not trying to risk it.
Right.
So.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, these
so
guys
really
are
interesting. I mean, Alex Oliveira is on that card as well. I mean, there's a lot of big names here.
Yeah,
a lot
dude.
of big names.
It's going to be a good night.
Yeah, man, it will be. We're at about an hour right now. I think that was we had a lot to cover, a lot of interesting stuff there. I think that about wraps it up, though. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. But before we go, I want to remind you to follow our show here on Twitch, like and subscribe on YouTube, and also subscribe on your favorite podcast player. If you really want to help us grow, share this episode with a friend. Tell all your friends. Help us out. We're telling ours. Yes. You tell yours. We're loving it. As always, we appreciate your support, and we're glad you're here because we love doing this.
Yes, absolutely.
It's really fun
I think
for
this
us.
is a very successful weigh-ins #1, so I'm excited for. I mean, I don't know. This may be a weekly thing. I guess it all depends on really like how much is going on in the UFC. I mean, there's plenty of stuff to cover. So many fights happening from now until the end of the year. So I think we could probably make it happen once a week. But again, that's kind of to be determined. But we'll make sure we let you guys know. Make sure you're following us on Instagram and you're subscribed on your favorite podcast player so you do get notified whenever we put one of these episodes up. And on our Instagram and Twitter, we'll be promoting these ahead of time as well, so you know that one's coming and you can kind of tune in. But I had a lot of fun, man. I think you did as well. So,
well, also, I just want to say if we don't do it every week, at least after every major UFC event, you guys can look 100%. For this. So, but yeah, man, I had a great time. A lot of fun.
Yes, absolutely. So, all right. Well, with that, thank you guys once again. And if we don't talk to you guys next week with a weigh-in episode, make sure you catch us on Friday. Fridays are our traditional, every week podcast episode. Lots of stuff to cover already. A lot of news in these industries that we follow. So make sure you check us out then, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.
Have a great night. Or day, or whenever you're listening to us. Just have a great time. We'll talk to you soon.
Maybe it's 2 a.m. All right. See you
Who
guys.
knows? Later.